Hi, my name is Alyssa Lyanne. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is kind of like a video essay. I don't know if it's going to make sense. I hope it makes sense. It's just like I've never seen anyone do this, so I don't know if it's revolutionary or it doesn't make sense. Those are the two options for this video. Today I'm going to be talking about irrelevant brands coming back to life. It's kind of like related to trends and everything, and like I think people like watching my trend videos, so let's talk about this. If I say something wrong, feel free to correct me in the comment section below. I'm gonna link all of my sources in the description box because I'm gonna read from them, so you know, cite your sources. I've never put this much effort into like an essay, a case study for school. I put more effort into this than like 10 of my school assignments combined, so like I really hope you enjoy and I really hope you can like if you like this video. These are the brands I'm going to be talking about today. If you're interested in any of them, then keep on watching. If you're not interested in any of them, you can leave. Yeah, okay, let's start. The first company I'm going to be talking about today is Chanel. Yes, Chanel. Like, you're probably wondering why I'm talking about Chanel in this video about irrelevant brands, but I promise it makes sense. Hear me out, like listen, let's talk about it. Did you know that Chanel was once an irrelevant, dormant fashion house? Chanel is one of the most relevant classic brands around, and that's the entire point. Like, you wouldn't realize that at one point they were like a failing fashion brand. A little bit of history about Chanel. Gabrielle Chanel, aka Coco Chanel, opened her first shop in Paris in 1910 and began selling hats. In 1925, Chanel designed and introduced the iconic Chanel suit. It's actually pretty revolutionary for that time because like at the time people were wearing uncomfortable corsets and form-fitting things, and the Chanel suit was just like closer to what men wore at the time. So despite Chanel being an NAZI, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say NAZI on YouTube. So blah blah blah, Coco Chanel, cool and revolutionary. But then like after she died, Chanel kind of also died-ish, you know? After Chanel's death, the company had focused on producing fragrances and earned most of its profits from selling accessories. The couture line after her death got like really boring because they just copied her old designs. And then in 1983, Lagerfeld stepped into Chanel's headquarters and basically saved the brand as a fashion house. As far as I heard on TikTok, Chanel was like known as like an old person brand, you know? Like it was irrelevant basically, like in fashion. Like people thought like wearing Chanel suits was like for old people, and like Karl Lagerfeld kind of saved the brand from like being an old people brand. So how the heck did Karl Lagerfeld do that? He reconstructed Coco Chanel's heritage and defined distinct codes for the house to follow in each of its collections. So these are like the distinct things that you'll see in like pretty much every like Chanel collection. Tweed, gold, beige, pink, and black. Lagerfeld was one of the first to understand the power of historical heritage and make this kind of cataloging. He also made like really unexpected Chanel pieces. Like he made like grunge styled like tweed sets and stuff, and he put the logo on like the randomest things, which sparked attention and made the logo like cool. Now the Chanel brand is so powerful that you can put its logo on like a nylon bag and people will come flocking to it. I feel like talking about Chanel in an irrelevant sense makes no sense, and it's hard for me to wrap my head around, but that's because like the rebrand was so successful that you never even think of Chanel as like an old person brand anymore. And yeah, that is why they're the blueprint for these other brands that are rebranding. The next company I want to talk about is delias. I don't know how you pronounce that, but it's that Y2K early 2000s 90s store that you've probably seen on Pinterest. If you're an avid Pinterest user, you've probably seen their like aesthetically pleasing catalogs or whatever. They've been super trendy and like people have been recreating the catalogs. I have recreated the catalog, like I've made my own version of it, and it was really fun. Personally, I only saw delias. The pronunciation's probably wrong, but like I only saw them as like a 90s brand that kind of like dollskill adopted, but they actually were like bankrupt at one point. So according to Insider, Delia's growth came to a halt at the turn of the decade when popular fast fashion brands such as Forever 21 and H&M started to take market share. And in 2014, the chain filed for bankruptcy. I think Delia's was relevant like in the 2000s. I think I wasn't alive for it, and it probably wasn't even here in the Philippines anyway, so even if I was alive for it, I wouldn't know. But I think it was relevant in the same era as like these 2000s brands like Aeropostale, limited to American Apparel, and it's interesting to see Delia's kind of re-emerge while these other brands stay pretty quiet. Now let's talk about how and why they re-emerge. These are just based on like my opinion, so you know, take them with a grain of salt. I don't make sense all the time. I hope this makes sense. So the first thing I wrote down here is nostalgia and the 90s and 2000s comeback. Delia's was actually relaunched by dollskill in 2018. Like Delia's didn't like just come back as a brand. Like I'm pretty sure dollskill probably bought Delia's, maybe? I don't know how business works. Dollskill may be a problematic brand, but the way they brought back delias is pretty freaking cool to me, so I'm gonna talk about it. Dollskill kind of like adopted delias and adopted all of its like 2000s vibe, since that vibe is kind of coming back. Today, based on their Instagram, delias kind of mostly focuses on like Y2K fast fashion vibes, which is like not going anywhere anytime soon as far as I can see. I see delias thriving until Y2K becomes like completely irrelevant, which I feel like it will be irrelevant in a few years. So it'll be interesting to see what trajectory dollskill takes delias in, because I feel like delias has evolved from when dollskill first relaunched them. They're kind of following like current trends as well. The next brand I'm going to be talking about is Coach. If you're an avid TikTok user, you've probably seen a Coach bag recently on your For You page. In my opinion, I used to see Coach as like an average brand. Like I saw old people wearing it, and like it wasn't really high fashion luxury. I just saw it as like an average, like mid-range brand. I never thought it would have like a comeback where it would become trendy again, but here we are. A little bit of history about Coach. Like it was founded in the 1940s as Manhattan leather bags by Lillian and Khan, and the brand designed and manufactured leather bags that were inspired by the craftsmanship of baseball mitts. According to this article I found, Coach became a trailblazer brand for the industry, taking the title of affordable luxury. But since then, Coach has kind of rebranded. It's really evident with their Instagram and their social media presence. They've been hiring trendy people, you know, like trendy people among the youth, like Cole Sprouse, Ricky Thompson, Ken Blackwell, Barbie Ferreira. Megan Thee Stallion wore like a Coach dress to the Met Gala. All these young and trendy celebrities, like it's really clear to see that they're trying to target like a younger audience as opposed to the older audience they used to have. According to this article I found, Coach's higher-end merchandise, renovated stores, and its closing of week stores all contributed to its improvement. Coach has made like drastic changes within their brand, and they've completely changed like brand perception, at least among probably Gen Z, millennial aged people. Today the brand's moving in a more minimalist direction and playing with color. I kind of noticed that they use like less prints, less monograms, and more just like solid colors and like basics, you know? So in conclusion, why do I think they're popular again? Number one, the rebrand, the celebrities. But also, this is my favorite thing to talk about, micro trends. Coach has a few like micro trendy bags out there, like the pillow tabby, the baguette bag. I've seen a lot on TikTok, honestly. I think they're really accessible to like the Gen Z audience because it's like relatively affordable compared to like higher end luxury brands like Louis Vuitton, Chanel, you know, it's cheaper. Next brand I want to talk about is New Balance, and you know, New Balance was never really like irrelevant, but it's interesting how they turned their brand from like purely like utility for comfort shoes into like shoes that supermodels wear. It's very interesting to see. New Balance was never really a trendy it brand. I know I'm talking about me a lot, but like in my opinion, like as a kid, I saw New Balance as that like sneaker brand that old people wear. I never saw it as cool. I used to see Nike and Adidas as cool, but like as you can tell, I've had a change of heart, and I think New Balance is really freaking cool. Like I bought a pair of sneakers like yesterday. I'm part of this, okay? I'm part of the problem. New Balance was founded in 1906, and it focused on producing specialist arch support and orthopedic footwear to give customers greater comfort and a New Balance. Wow, very cool. So from this like brand history, we can see that they never really set out to be like a cool it brand. They were more in it for the comfort, for the utility. They were function over form, but like they're trendy now for some reason. So how did this happen even? Like why are we here? Why the heck are New Balance 550s so freaking expensive? Based on what I see, based on my opinions, like everything in this video is like my opinion pretty much. As I talked about earlier, Coach kind of hired trendy people, right? They hired like Cole Sprouse, Megan Thee Stallion. They hired them. With New Balance, it's kind of like the opposite, because New Balance never really hired these supermodels to wear these shoes. They just naturally gravitated for the shoes somehow. A bunch of supermodels and A-list celebrities have been wearing New Balance out, knowing damn well that their outfits are being scrutinized. It's a fashion statement to them. Like I saw Kendall Jenner, Timothy Chalamet, Kaya Gerber, Bella Hadid, Tom Holland. I think this ad encapsulates New Balance perfectly. Like this poster encapsulates it perfectly. It says New Balance, worn by supermodels and dads in Ohio, and I think that's just the perfect representation of the brand as a whole. But it was not all organic and natural. Obviously, New Balance saw the hype and like helped with the hype as well. They collaborated with like trendy brands like Leon Dore, Levi's, and like Stone Island. All of these like trendy brands, I would say. My overall conclusion as to why New Balances are like trendy, because they look vintage or like retro. Obviously, we like 90s, 80s, 70s fashion. We're all about the retro things nowadays, and I think that New Balances kind of look retro. The next brand I'm going to be talking about is Crocs. I know Crocs aren't at the peak of their trend anymore. Like they were super trendy maybe in the peak quarantine era in like 2020. I know that. I understand that, but I think I want to talk about them still because at one point they were like the trendiest shoe around, which is like so odd. Didn't think they would come back ever, but like here we are. Only piece of history I wrote down here is that Crocs was born in Colorado as a simple, comfortable boat shoe. This one's gonna be pretty short because I didn't do much research about them. As far as I know and as far as I remember from my childhood, Crocs were popular because they were comfortable. I owned red Crocs as a kid and they got stuck in the freaking escalator. I will never forget that. So let's talk about why Crocs were trendy at one point. Here are the conclusions I've made. So number one, Gen Z and our love for irony, our love for sarcasm and like being weird. We just love doing weird, unconventional things as a generation, so that's one thing. And number two is because of like people's gravitation towards comfort. I'm not super sure about this, but when I did my little research moment, I saw that apparently people like Crocs again because they were comfortable, and because of quarantine, people were like gravitating towards comfort again. And like also, how could I forget the freaking Balenciaga Crocs things? Like, those were so abominable. Crocs by themselves already atrocious, but when you add platforms or freaking heels to them, absolutely not. So yeah, that's the Crocs reemergence. On to the last brand, which is the Gap. Gap is a San Francisco-based clothing retailer founded in 1969. In 2020, Gap announced that it would be closing 350 Gap and Banana Republic shops in North America. So as you can see, like, they're kind of losing relevance. From what I understand, I don't have hard facts or evidence for this, but like from what I see and from what I understand, Gap used to be a really big brand in the like 80s and 90s. The name Gap actually came from like a term used at the time called the Generation Gap. So yeah, they were one of those trendy hip brands at the time. From the YouTube video I watched yesterday at night, this is what I got, okay? So the reason why Gap kind of passed this like downwards trajectory is because they tried really hard to keep their original audience. At first, their audience was young, so they were doing stuff for young people. When their audience was in their like 30s, 40s, they made Gap Kids to cater towards the people who have kids. And then after that, they made Baby Gap and stuff like that. And then after that, they made clothes for like even older people. And then it reached a certain point where their original audience was already in their 70s. Obviously, you wouldn't be wearing the Gap in your 70s, but like they were still targeting towards them. And then of course younger people didn't want to wear Gap because it's like seen as like an older people thing, an older generation thing. And yeah, that's kind of the story. The Gap has been like trendy recently. Like the brown hoodie on TikTok was super trendy last year. Again, I'm talking about this a little late, but it's still very interesting. So in June 2020, Gap announced a decade-long deal with Kanye West. Like Gap and Yeezy were doing like a collaboration thing. Now I don't know much about Kanye West or Yeezy, so I don't want to talk about this because I feel like I'll get attacked if I say something wrong. I'm not sure, okay? But like this kind of saved Gap from like completely dying. I know that this Yeezy collaboration really drove up the hype for Gap as a whole. I'm sure it was an integral part to it. I'm not sure if the hype will stick for a very long time though. Also, popular internet fashion figures such as like Emma Chamberlain, Barbara Christopherson, and Ruby Lynn have been seen wearing like Gap logo hoodies. In my opinion, when these three people wear things, like anything they wear becomes trendy, especially Emma Chamberlain, as you probably know. So my conclusion as to how Gap became trendy again is number one, the Yeezy collaboration. Number two, nostalgic appeal. Number three, I didn't really touch on this, but like the back to basics thing, like Gap sells a lot of basics and stuff. I don't think this is a huge part, but it's a part nonetheless. And number four, TikTok fashion. You know, TikTok has the power to sway fashion a lot. Like everyone's on TikTok 24/7. I'm on TikTok 24/7. It's kind of a problem. But yeah, that's my conclusion. That's it for the brands I wanted to talk about today. These are just a few examples of brands that have re-emerged in the recent years, and it's interesting to think about what brands will re-emerge in the next decade or even just in the next year. I never saw Gap coming back. You never saw Coach coming back. Like, it's really random and weird. So overall, for all of these brands, the common denominators are like rebranding, nostalgia, TikTok fashion and micro trends, and popular people wearing them. Aside from Chanel and maybe New Balance, I don't see a lot of these brands maintaining their popularity with time. I think they're very much just like trends or fads even. Some of these are just like Champion in 2016 to 2018, you know. We all remember that, like when everyone was wearing Champion. I think this is a very similar phenomenon for a lot of these brands. What I picked up from doing all of this freaking research, and I actually researched this for like 1.5 days. Obviously I was distracted, but like 1.5 days. And what I picked up was that not only do fashion trends cycle, but also like fashion brands also cycle. Yeah, that is the conclusion for this video. Not sure if that was a solid conclusion. It was fun to make and it was fun to research. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Please don't forget to like this video if you got like literally anything from it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more trends, fashion, Pinterest things, shopping, hauls, lookbooks, and more stuff like that. Again, thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye!